Okay, it is actually 8 o'clock a.m. Tuesday, April the 26th, 2022. And I am Professor Richard H. Wright, your professor for uh, this class, Contemporary Issues in Criminal Justice. And I came on a little early today because I have something I need to do later this evening. So I'm preparing this recording uh, just a few hours earlier that you'll have in advance, give you a jump start as well. Of course, you know what to do as we approach the uh, fourth week. Assignments from week 1 to 3 will not be accepted anymore. I didn't have anyone that reached out to me with extenuating circumstances, and most of you are doing pretty well. You just have to make sure that you continue to pay close attention to the modules, and remember APA and Grammarly. You got to run your papers through Grammarly so that you can avoid uh, getting a high percentage of hit for Grammarly. So it's very important, especially as you guys are about ready to leave with your associates. Hopefully, many of you will be returning for your master's or for your bachelor's, should I say, and I'll see you in those classes as well. So, as usual, if you have any issues, it's on you to reach out to me. Let me know. You know my rule: any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. And you're also aware that you can text me or call me better, and email is a last resort. Most of you do text or email, or text or either call me. Just leave me a message if I'm not available. I promise you I'll get back in touch with you right away. As you should know, we have 48 hours to respond. I don't take 48 hours to respond, especially to phone calls and text messages. Emails sometimes get lost in the shuffle, and it may go past that. But I generally try to respond. And then, as I say, the best method is not emails back and forth, but communication through talking to me or texting me. Because if you text me, if I'm still not clear on what you need, ultimately I will talk to you. Because trust me, you can make a whole lot of um, difference in your grades sometimes by just a conversation with me. Don't be afraid to reach out to me. My number is 630-660-8480. I'm readily available to help you. Uh, it's on you. So let's get started. Let's talk about the assignments for week number 4. And here we are. Let's share my screen. Okay, so now we're going to go straight to the grade book, and you'll see what the assignments are for the week. As you can see, I've completed a grading for week 2. I've completed the discussion and other live classroom grades, and I have 12 written assignments to grade for this week, which will be graded by Friday. And so this week, we're going to deal with crime statistics. We're going to deal with a discussion post policing, community policing, and live classroom. You give the key phrase that I will provide you during the course of this lecture. Okay, let's go to the calendar. As you can see, we are running out of days. I give you the month view. In fact, this is the last week in the month. So your initial post is due tonight at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. The live lecture, of course, says 7, but I'm doing it now. And then your discussion posts, your reply are due Saturday, which is the last day of the month. And your written assignments are due the first day of May, which is Sunday, and your live classroom phrase. All right. Now, be aware that next week we will be having lectures on Tuesday, and I will probably do this lecture early as well because May 3rd is actually my birthday, so I will probably do it early in the morning, and you'll have it already by the time the evening comes, so I can celebrate the rest of my day for my birthday next week. And then join me back again on Friday for 7 o'clock p.m. lecture. That lecture will be, this is going to be week 5, this is going to be week 6. And you know why we're doing that? Because the course actually ends on Tuesday the 10th. Okay, so all assignments not in by the 10th, 11:59 p.m. will not be accepted unless I granted you an incomplete and you requested it appropriately. But I don't always grant them. I look and see what you've done so far and also listen to the reasons that you're asking for it. Probably it's best to try to email me, I mean, not to email me, but to text me or to call me regarding those issues. Because if I don't have it in by the 10th, I can't do it after that. Okay, the system will not allow me to enter it on the 11th. So it's very important. All right, so let's go to the announcement for this week. Here it is. So comparing policing is the topic. We'll deal with policing history, early policing methods, and deal with technology. That's what we'll conclude with. All right, and again, the lecture is taking place right now, but you'll have it early in advance to get a jump start. Be sure to participate in the discussion assignment tonight, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, community policing. Your reply post, of course, repeating again, is due Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And finally, complete the written assignment, crime statistics. I'll give you the parameters of that. It will be due this Sunday. Again, I remind you, pay close attention to what is in the module and the rubrics and what I add to it when I talk in the lecture. Pay close attention. Some students, I can tell, try to do their assignments without listening to the lecture, and I can tell because they miss some things that I said. So remember, we're going to finish strong, and you know my motto, adversity is the springboard to success. All right, so let's get into our week 4 comparing policing. Let's start out by getting you clear on what the written assignment is. Now, you're going to use what is provided here in this paragraph. So you're going to choose a department in your area, and you're going to look at the crime statistics. There's available in most departments, especially the big ones, online. And they give you an example of Minneapolis, and it'll show crime spots. So what we want you to do is look at the statistics. Look at what's taking place there, and where crime is located. Now, you're going to write a two-page, not 1.5, not 1 3/4. You will lose points if you don't do 2 full pages. Remember, it's double space. APA. It's going to be in the form of a Word document with a cover page and an appropriate reference page. And you're going to describe the city that you researched, the statistics that you observed, and what measures you would suggest to lower crime in these areas. I repeat again what I said a few minutes ago. Cover sheet, reference page, in APA format, showing the websites you used, and here's some information that can help you with your paper. Okay, Microsoft Word document. So let's look at the rubric. As you know, I grade from the left side. If you don't have citations, even if you just have references, you're going to end up over here because you have an unclear description. Citations clarify it. So clear and comprehensive. So that means you've provided citations and you've also described the information that you discovered regarding the city. The same thing with the statistics that you discovered, and then the measure to lower the number of crimes. Very important. It's 1, 2, 3. It's straightforward. You want to get an A on this paper? Follow what's in the left column, the mastery. Okay? And you know why I prepare you for this. I discussed this last week with our lecture on writing. And writing is very important. Okay, it's something that we all need to be very good, written and oral communication, but written communication is very, very important. So anyway, that's the rubric. Make sure that you satisfy the requirements. Okay, don't try to shortcut it. Okay, let's get to the discussion assignment. So discussion assignment is on community policing. And you have a city that's given to you, the Salt Lake City Police Department website. Click on community engagement, choose one of the programs and read about it. Then find another department and research their community engagement program. In a post, 250 words at least, which means it has to have details. Describe the philosophy behind these programs. What do you think is the reason for the differences in the various programs? And then you do the same thing in 100 words or less with a reply post that is due on Saturday. Okay. All right. Very important. Pretty straightforward. And then your live classroom recording. Let me put this up here, which I will have posted. By the time you see this, you won't see this. You will see the link as well as having been emailed the link as well, so that you'll be able to access the recording that I'm doing right now. Then your live classroom phrase, you know what that is when I give it to you. And pay attention to what I'm talking about in this topic this week. You'll understand probably the topic that I will be choosing. But anyway, let's talk about these 3 items: policing history, early policing methods, and technology. So basically what I want to bring to your attention is, and I'm not going to go over all of this stuff, is that it points out the fact that there's been a big change from when policing started from the 1800s up to the 1950s. The officers were on foot patrol, most of them, and also the officers were generally members of the community. And so the community people knew the officers, and they, as it says here, they felt safe because they trusted someone that they knew. And you should know that that's something that really helps a whole lot. And so in the 20s, it began to um, um, reach the point where the patrol cars came into being. and there were fewer officers walking the patrol, but the problem of communication with the community uh, lost some because the people didn't know who they were in those cars, and they were not very approachable. And actually, people were worried whenever they saw the police. That's a sad statement to make, but that's almost the way it is today. And crime rates went up because there was no trust, and people didn't share um, who the individuals were that were committing the crimes, and that law enforcement wasn't like your officer friendly or somebody like that. They were there when there was a problem. So guess what? That's why whenever you saw a police car, you knew that there was a problem going on. And that's the way it was in the 20s. Of course, the 20s were during the era of the Prohibition. And here in Chicago, we had to deal with Al Capone, and we had a battle between Al Capone and a special unit called the Untouchables, which some of you may be familiar with through movies. But interesting side fact is that the high school I went to in Chicago, Fanger High School, is actually the high school where the real Elliot Ness graduated from in the 20s. So that's a little history, excuse me, for you that I'm aware of. So moving ahead uh, to the 80s and the 90s, remembering the fact that people um, uh, started considering there were problems. Just for a little while, there was some consideration about putting police officers back on foot patrol in high crime areas. However, though, you will discover that what happened in the 80s and 90s, um, the uh, approach was to try to get people to reach out to the police. They came up with numbers that you could call to report crime anonymously. There were organizations that were set up like DARE, the drug program, Officer Friendly. I remember as a kid, Officer Friendly coming up at that particular time. And so the key thing that they were approaching and promoting to the community was community support, and uh, the fact that they were there to help the community. And so you had, as I said, the beat officers, and they would come to churches, they would go to other community organizations, they would speak to the various people in the community. Again, this was an attempt to try to uh, get connection with the people. So the key thing is that we had a motto, I remember on the police cars in Chicago: we serve and protect. And um, the unfortunate thing is that many people, especially in the African American community, began to believe that we serve and protect meant of their own interests. And it wasn't. There wasn't a lot of diversity in the police departments. There weren't people who were um, of the same ethnicity, spoke the same language, or people that the community could relate to. And so there were some barriers that came about because of that. And also there was training that took place because I was a police officer 89 to 93. And I remember we had extensive training constantly and on all kinds of things like traffic stops, drugs stops, sex crimes, um, property crimes, and violent crimes as well. We dealt with all of that stuff in terms of our training. As a police officer in the 80s, I never wore a uniform because I did it part-time. I was already an attorney for the town of Fort Heights, and so I went to the classes that allowed me to become certified as a part-time officer, able to carry a weapon because of the certification and training. I participated in drug raids. Uh, we dealt with uh, times when we would block the streets and do checks to see for license and registration. Also, we would check for sobriety, as well as we were also searching for drugs, because the town I was the attorney in and police officer in was called Fort Heights, and it was known as the crack cocaine capital of the south suburbs. Uh, so there were a lot of issues there. Okay, so coming right down here. So now we deal with social service agencies, um, and, and there's a move to try to regain the trust of the community, um, and to research how the law is taking place. And now we're moving towards, thank God, dealing with disorders for individuals such as mental illness. I cannot tell you how many times. Let me turn that off. I thought that was off. It's supposed to be off. Well, anyway, the truth of the matter is that, let's see, that phone should be. It is down. I don't know why it rang loud. But at any rate, um, to gain the trust, and we deal, of course, with substance abuse. As you know, if you took the drugs and crime course, that we're heavily involved in that, because remember what I said in that class is that individuals commit crimes to support their drug habits, and oftentimes they're not bad people, but they are stuck on this substance, and this substance forces them to commit crimes to support their habits. And then there's homelessness we deal with because of a lot of the financial issues that face people these days. There are people living in abandoned houses, and so it's not just when there's a crime taking place, but also there could be a issue of disturbance, and people need help. People need help. Okay. So as we just see, going all the way back to the 1800s and what I've already talked about, where the police modeled itself under the British police. Did you not know the bobbies? And I don't know if it still is the same, but these were the police in England. They didn't carry guns, and the key thing was that try to establish a positive relationship and trust, as you know already. One of the things, though, that's helping our situation, which we'll talk about at the end, is technology, which has become like a check and balance on law enforcement as well, and policing. So being impartial and unbiased as a law enforcement officer, using physical force only necessary to restore order. We unfortunately have a lot of excessive force cases that take place. We know about one, well, I know two, Laquan McDonald here in Chicago, involving the 16 shots, and then the one that all people know in this country and even in the world, involved George Floyd and Derek Chauvin, and you know the results of that one. So it is important that though we have police, you've been hearing talk about defund the police, and I think that what people are truly trying to say, and it's not the best way to say it, is reallocate the funds, because, as I said, two of the big areas that we face are substance abuse and mental illness. And there need to be officers trained extensively in both of those areas, extensively, because oftentimes you'll find that there's a person who has a mental illness and a substance abuse problem. Okay, so moving into the 1900s, basically we started dealing with more training, dealing with testing, neurological testing, and selecting who were police. One of the things that is so ever important is that if you're going to become a law enforcement officer, you have to have the right mental state. You have to recognize that you're going to communicate with people from various backgrounds, cultures, beliefs, and your job is to be professional. I often said, be careful with the language you use. Of course, you use your vocal tones, but don't be condescending to people. I don't care what they did. And one of the times that I really have to remind my students this is when there is an incident where there's a police shooting involved, where a police officer is injured or shot. You have to be very careful how you handle that. Your emotions can get you in the way and create a very bad situation for yourself. So you don't want to do that. So we had a lot of social issues in the 60s and the 70s dealing with racial inequality. As I said, the departments were not very diverse. There were riots that took place. Dr. King was killed and other types of riots. You remember the Rodney King case out in California. There was the Vietnam War. We had a really, really bad situation that happened during the Democratic Convention in the 60s in Chicago, where Mayor Daley, Richard J. Daley, the mayor as we call it, not Richard M., who came later, who was his son, ordered the police to pull out batons, and it was horrible. You can still go to Google it and you will see it. It was one of the most embarrassing moments for the city of Chicago, and it created a problem. The police were called the pigs by the people, and that it was felt that there was some suppression. It was also during this very same period that we had the assassination in Chicago of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, who were Black Panthers, and Fred was from Maywood, and I think Mark was from Peoria. But the fact of the matter is that um, there was a conspiracy that later came to being, that was ordered all the way from the FBI down to the then state's attorney Ed Hanrahan, who had a special troop, and they utilized these police officers who actually um, raided a place on the west side of Chicago and shot and killed Fred Hampton and Mark Clark and wounded others in that incident. So there was some issues with people trusting law enforcement. So moving into the 80s and the 90s, we had terrorism coming in, and this was even before September the 11th. We had the World Trade Center bombings and the Oklahoma City bombings, and um, so we were in an area of terrorism. There became an increase by creating 911 dispatch, um, fingerprinting. When I was an officer, you put your fingers in the ink and you rolled it and then put it on paper. Well, now they began to develop techniques so that you didn't have to do that. It was more electronic, but we'll talk about that at the end here. Um, Very important dealing with record keeping. And then we come with ComStat, which is a method used to identify, using technology, hotspots in the area or areas where there was high crime, and to begin to operate law enforcement or policing as a science, and to be able to operate on the basis of being able to know where a gun was fired and be able to quickly uh, learn the vicinity using technology. So then finally, the terrorist attack of September the 11th, which changed a whole lot of things. And the law enforcement locally began to work with the feds and to deal with individuals who were considered as domestic or international terrorists on United States soil. Okay. And so we conclude, and it brings us to, it says policing today is proactive. In other words, it's no longer simply to enforce the laws. So as I explain to my students all the time, you're going to end up being a social worker, and you're going to end up counseling individuals. You're going to have to learn about de-escalation a whole lot and be able to apply it. And it is also requiring, as a result, uh, police officers are hired at a level with more education, so that they're more educated, and it says college educated, which you guys are, and learn how to be socially conscious. We talked about diversity, and become more responsible. Tech savvy, we talked about that, and we'll conclude with that. And want to maintain, as it says, a positive relationship with diverse communities. Let me say that one of the issues that relate to law enforcement taking place with the communities, and we're talking about college educated, is because every time a police officer is engaged in something, there is a possibility of litigation. And litigation is a very expensive thing. It oftentimes results in settlements of large amounts of money, settlements in the millions. And sometimes it creates budgetary restraints, and also on the citizens themselves, who have to pay that through their taxes. So here are some few resources that are here. We now have body cams, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. All right. And other cameras. So that's the history. Early policing methods. We've kind of already talked about that. So I won't really spend a whole lot of time, but because we've already covered this area pretty much. But what I want to bring to you again is a reminder that we are at a stage now where law enforcement is not just working within their own area. They're dealing with all over. We're dealing with individuals who um, are fluent in terms of operating computers. And we actually have units now that deal with cybercrime. In fact, that's one of the courses, one of the skills that you can obtain from attending Rasmussen University. So we deal with terrorism and we deal with fraud. There's a lot of electronic fraud taking place. I have been the victim of that. I recently had someone to file a return this year for me from 2021 at an address that I lived with over 10 years ago. And I got the information and reached the IRS and flagged it down. But and they use electronic filing. So law enforcement has to understand, again, repeating what I said, proficient in communicating with and assisting diverse populations from different cultures and their ethnicities. Okay. All right. So again, moving down to the bottom of this um, um, setup, we have um, officers who are proficient in shooting and they join the SWAT teams, K9 officers who help to find bodies and sniff out drugs and bombs, and work with other agencies working together. We have decoy and stings and stakeout operations. I wasn't a part of that, but I know officers who were undercover and did buys and things like that. But I was involved in drug raids where we raided places where drugs were distributed. So now we also have cameras everywhere, dash cams and body cams. And actually, people should understand that these are good because they make it pretty clear what is happening at the scene. And when I was coming up as an attorney, we didn't have these things. But the dash cams actually will tell the story. The Laquan McDonald case, the dash cam made it quite clear that what the police officers wrote in their reports and what they alleged had taken place involving that young man was not what happened because the camera didn't lie. And then the body cams are there also, and more departments are getting body cams, and it protects um, the public as well as the law enforcement. Okay, so in conclusion in this area, it says the concept is to build a positive rapport. We want to go back to remember winning trust of the community and to be able to operate on the basis of service. Remember, the idea of policing is to serve and protect. Serve and protect. Okay. All right, so let us now go to the last section as we conclude today's lecture. As you see, all police cars now are equipped with computers. They're traveling computers. They have radar detection. They have, as I said, the body cams as well as the dash cams. And the computers are such that we can identify the spots where crime is taking place. We talked about ComStat a few minutes ago, but GPS says have reduced crime by identifying the hot spots, improving the officer response. And it makes it easier for the officer to be able to have information. The public is aware of the information because it's on the website of many departments using systems like ComStat and lets you know where crime is bad. One of the things that you should be aware of is that in high crime areas, generally the insurance rates are also higher as well. There is also technology that allows the public to deal with helping individuals. The infamous Amber Alerts when people are snatched, and it provides really quickly ways to track the vehicles or transportation where these individuals are in, and have been very successful in saving the lives of children and adults. We also use social media like Facebook. Uh, I attend a seminar usually almost every year put on by the Illinois chiefs of police, and we had um, extensive training in how Facebook can be utilized. As you probably should know, is that there are people who will advertise their drug dealing as well as their gun dealing on Facebook. And we are able to utilize Facebook and other social media to get the location, oftentimes of those individuals, and we can actually uh, take a bite out of crime, as they say, or reduce crime. So technology helps is a friend to law enforcement, and the various ways that CompStat works is that it helps us to utilize the manpower more efficiently. Okay. Finally, um, the positive effects of technology. There are also some challenges with it. One of the challenges it talks about is body cameras. Some officers don't like them because they consider them a privacy violation. Well, to be honest with you, if you're doing your job the way that you are trained and you're following your department policies, the camera would be a friend to you. But if you are what we sometimes refer to as a rogue cop or someone who, wants to just bust heads and not operate efficiently and put the municipality or entity that you work for in jeopardy of serious litigation, then you definitely don't want cameras. But the key thing is that uh, the cameras, it says, the complainer says that the cameras do not show the community and police power imbalance. And they argue that cameras only serve to enhance community policing motives with the residents while negating to address that there are still other ills. Well, the key thing is that the cameras actually provide evidence. Oftentimes, you already know that the um, cameras and the footage are able to be subpoenaed by the media and other individuals through FOIA, Freedom of Information Act arrangements, and brought out to the public. We also have what we call license plate readers, uh, and um, and officers are able to get the license plates without having to write it down. Um, and it's easier to locate vehicles. And so it makes it more efficient and faster. The challenge to this technology is that they combine surveillance techniques with data collection and storage of data that can be used to make connections, identify offenders. The surveillance issue you have to be very careful not to stereotype individuals and find yourselves um, reaching the point that individuals are, are stopped because of their race or national origin. Very important that the stops also be conducted in professional fashion. So the key thing is we want to be more professional. We want to utilize technology as a positive thing and to recognize that it is important for us as individuals who seek to become law enforcement officers to do as I say, educated, professional, and ethical approach to doing that job. Okay, well, I am going to terminate this session, but I'm going to give you a key phrase. If you know anything about what we've been talking about pretty much today, community policing. That's the topic. That's the key phrase to get your points. Community policing. Okay, well, again, this is Richard Wright, your professor. I will be, again, probably recording early on next Tuesday, May 3rd, so you'll have it early again, and then be able to see you next Thursday, not this Thursday, but next Thursday for week 6. All right. If you have any questions or concerns, you know what the deal is. You know how to reach out to me. It's on you. Have a good day and a good evening. See you next week.